if you have any questions about robotics, I can probably help out with those, or maybe help find some answers for you. Now, why are we here? Well, of course, it's to win the hackathon, right? But how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to share a little bit of experience that I've had in participating in SpaceApps, and there was one other hackathon that I was on a winning team of. To make the best use of your time and your effort and your resources, and to produce something that will win. Now, the first thing that you need to consider is, what is the judging criteria? And this is directly from the resources page on the 2020 SpaceAppsChallenge.org. There's a document about the judging criteria, and it goes into great length about what each of these criteria are. But briefly, your solution has to have impact, both in quality and quantity. You know, does it solve a big problem, or will it inspire other people to help solve a problem? Creativity. How creative or innovative is the approach? Is it something that hasn't ever been done before, or is it an incremental improvement on something that's already there? It has to be valid, and that's scientifically valid. Will it work, and can it work in the real world? Also, is it relevant? You know, is the project responsive to the challenge for which it was submitted? Is it a complete solution, or do you still have a long way to go? And finally, and this is the thing that people kind of disregard the most because they're so busy trying to get their solution together, is the presentation. And the point that NASA makes in putting weight on the presentation is that it's great to have a wonderful idea, but if you can't communicate that idea in a clear, concise way, then, you know, you haven't done the job. So you need to make sure that you spend time focusing on the presentation of your idea. So I'm gonna break down what your next 48 hours should look like, and kind of how you should be laying things out. First point at very high level is keeping it simple, making sure that you do the research, and whatever your solution is, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a perfect app if you're creating an app or a web page. It's important to make whatever you do, make it look good. And then you need to make a killer, I call it here a killer presentation or video. This year, all you can do is produce a video. I think the requirements are you have a 30-second video and up to 7 slides. So you've got to make that look good. And then last but not least, but probably most importantly, is that timing is everything, and making sure that you keep to a schedule is going to be really, really important in the next 2 days. So keeping it simple. I mean, you're in a 48-hour hackathon, which is not a lot of time. You're not going to be able to produce, you know, an all-encompassing production-ready solution, okay? The challenges are broad and ambiguously worded, and they do that on purpose because they want to encourage imaginative and creative solutions. It's important that you scope constrain what you're working on, okay? Understand the problem space. Focus on solving one aspect of the problem, and then if you've got time, you can add features to your solution. So keeping control of the scope is really, really important, because you can really go down a rabbit hole on some of these challenges. Okay, research. This is it's one of the judging criteria as I went on about. It has to be scientifically feasible. So you've got to be able to demonstrate in your write-up and your presentation and your video that you understand the science behind your solution. So it's the first thing that you need to work on. On your solution page, there is a resources tab. You should look at that. You should understand it very, very thoroughly, what those resources are, what the data is, and then go and understand what that data is, okay? And don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't just limit yourself to what's on the solution page. You know, use Google or whatever to find other sources, because sometimes the best insights come from combining different data sets. And then Finally, don't be afraid to actually talk to an expert about the data. We did this in 2014 on the problem solution that we were working on. They listed who the owner was of the data that we were working with, and we emailed the guy, asked him if it was okay if he would, if we could call him and talk to him, and he agreed. And we spent about an hour on the phone with the guy, understanding the data, and it really helped us build the solution that we did. So don't be afraid to talk to an expert. In the SpaceApps Challenge pages, globally, they've set up a rocket chat. So, I mean, you could get onto that, and if you need to talk to anybody at NASA, but of course, on our Discord here, we've got a lot of resources between different experts at SkyWatch and outside of SkyWatch and the CSA to help you with the data that you're looking at. So don't hesitate to use that resource. Whatever you produce for your solution does not have to be perfect, okay? It doesn't have to be a perfectly running app. Like a static web page is perfectly fine. If all you're going to do is code up some HTML or a little bit of JavaScript and throw it up on a web browser, that's fine, okay? The judges understand that you've only got 48 hours to put this together. Again, constrain your app. Don't fall victim to scope creep. Pick something, solve it really well, do a good job of presenting that solution, and then if you've got time, add on to it. The data that backs whatever you're doing, don't be afraid to scaffold it. And scaffolding, for those of you that aren't really familiar with software development, basically means is you take a snapshot of the data and use that. Don't use data from a live website or from a live data set that's constantly changing. It just makes your job that much more difficult. Okay, and then finally, in a normal year for SpaceApps, you'd have to decide between doing a live demo versus a video, but you really only have the video option this year, and you've only got 30 seconds. Okay, you need to make it look good, and this is now getting into the presentation part of this. Think about it from the judge's perspective. The judges have tens, maybe even hundreds, probably not that much this time, at least not locally in KW, but they've got at least tens of projects and presentations that they need to look at and study. And believe me, if you make it look good, if you make it eye-catching, it helps you get noticed. And I mean, as shallow as that is for all the research work that you will do over the weekend for the data, that's unfortunately part of the thing. So make sure your styling is consistent, that you have a consistent theme, and make sure that your write-up is clear and succinct. It's to the point, right? Talk about the problem being solved, explain your solution in the simplest possible terms, talk about benefits, both short and long term. And then also, don't be afraid to talk about the challenges that you encountered working with the data and what you've learned. And then also document what the next steps would be. I mean, you only have 48 hours. So, I mean, there's got to be a lot more that you can do to build out your solution. Okay, and then create a killer presentation or a video. If any of you saw James's kickoff, he showed the video that we produced in 2014. Now, back then we had the advantage that the video could be a minute long. Now you're only restricted to 30 seconds. But I mean, like, you look at the video, I mean, like, it's more about presentation and more about why than about the actual solution that we produced. I think maybe out of that 1 minute video, there might have been 15 seconds of product demo. So keep everything in perspective. You got to put your marketing hat on here and sell the solution that you're producing. Don't try to cram everything in, okay? And then obviously the more visuals that you can produce, the better. And please don't speed read through the script, okay? Write it out and practice it and make sure that you can speak to it really, really easily and not rushed in 30 seconds, okay? Talk about the problem, talk about your solution, talk about the benefits of solution. And please make it simple and make it engaging, and rehearse. rehearse the script, say it 10, 15, 20 times if you have to, but it should come across that you're very comfortable at what you're presenting. So that's a lot to do in 48 hours. So keep getting a plan in place right at the beginning, and figuring out how much to allocate to each of that is hugely important. So come up with a plan with your team and then stick to it. You need the time to do the research and the development, but seriously, by noon on Sunday, because you have until 11:59 p.m., so you're giving yourself 12 hours, you need to start working on your write-up. You need to start working on your video. And please don't wait until 11:55 to try to upload everything. That site's going to be really, really busy at that time. So if you can, please try to upload your stuff, like, by 11:15 maybe. Try to be early, because you don't want to be left out because your upload didn't complete in time. You're on a team, so make sure you divide and conquer. You've got a lot of work to do, so you've got to make sure that people are working on important parts of your solution. So don't be afraid to delegate. Get to know your teammates, figure out what their strengths are, what they can do, and what they can accomplish, and give them tasks that they'll be successful at completing. And then make sure, and then don't walk away and expect to come back 36 hours later and expect them to be done. Check up on them once an hour, once every couple hours. Make sure things are going okay. Make sure they're not running into any roadblocks, because time is of the essence here. And then starting then on Sunday afternoon, make sure you bring it all together. And again, make sure that your message is consistent and it's cohesive and it looks good, and it looks absolutely great. So that's really about it. In about 14 minutes, I've talked about a lot, but it's a pretty simple message. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. So yeah, Dave, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Roland. Yep, so we have about 5 minutes for questions now. If anybody has a question, feel free to turn on your microphone and your camera and ask away.
Well, I guess that was pretty straightforward. Everybody here is primed and ready to win the hackathon.
All right. Well, there was a lot of good info there, so I hope everybody takes note of that and can make good use of it throughout the weekend. Good luck with your projects. Oh, here we have a question from Harsh. Could you do a quick recap just to kind of summarize the main important points?
I'll go back to my first slide. Really, it's making sure that you keep it simple. You do your research, because you need to know the science behind it, and you need to demonstrate that you understand it. Your app or your solution or your website does not need to be perfect. As I said, a static web page is perfectly acceptable, but you got to make sure that it looks good. Spend time on doing your video. Make sure it's a killer video. It looks good. And in 30 seconds really drives home what you're trying to do. And then the most important thing is plan it out. Plan out your time and stick to that plan. Don't try to rush it. Don't rush the presentation at the end.
All right, great. Is there anything else that anybody has questions about? Okay, in that case, thank you very much, Roland, for your time, and good luck, everybody. Have a good weekend.
All right, thanks, Dave, and good luck, everyone.